Hello and welcome to BYJU'S IAS. Let's get started and look into our daily quiz. Let's look into the first question. Which of the following are the percussion instruments? Alingya, Chenda, Kamaicha, Urdhwaka. The answer to this is 1, 2 and 4 only. Why have we taken this practice question? Because this article on the Hindu makes a mention of Chenda, which happens to be a percussion instrument. When it comes to the musical instruments, we can categorize them into four different compartments. What are those? One is what is called as Avadhana Vadya. These are called as the percussion instruments. Gana Vadya are solid instruments which do not require tuning. Then we have Sushira Vadya, which are the wind instruments. Finally, what we have is the Thata Vadya, which is nothing but the stringed instruments. When we look into the options, yes, Alingya happens to be the percussion instrument. Chenda happens to be the percussion instrument. Urdhwaka happens to be a percussion instrument, but Kamaicha is not a percussion instrument, but instead it is a stringed instrument. So the image as shown in this particular PPT is what is called as Kamaicha, and this is one of the instrument which is practiced in one of the states in India. As part of assignment, you have to put on the comment section which is that state which uses this stringed instrument called as Kamaicha. Now, when we speak about Chenda, Chenda happens to be a percussion instrument. It is widely used in the state of Kerala. As shown from the image, the cylindrical wooden part can be made from the jackfruit tree wood. It can also be made from white teak wood, and it can also be made from sugar palm wood as well. But the one which is carved out from the jackfruit tree is assumed to be special when it comes to Chenda. These are some of the percussion instruments which we have discussed. If you find anything else, please put it on the comment section. Now let's look into the next practice question. Arrange the following hills from north to south. Ramgarh Hills, Jargat Hills, Nallamala Hills, Ponmudi Hills. The answer to this is 1, 2, 3 and 4. Why have we taken this practice question? Because this article on the Hindu makes a mention of Ponmudi Hills. If we look into the practice question, we have Ramgarh Hills, which is to the northernmost, followed by Garjat Hills. Then we have Nallamala Hills, and finally what we have is Ponmudi Hills, and this is in the state of Kerala. Nallamala is in the state of Andhra Pradesh. Rajghat Hills is in the state of Odisha, and Ramgarh Hills is where you have to mention on the comment section. Now if you look into this article, it makes a mention of two plant species. One happens to be Fimbrisstylus sunli, the other happens to be Neonotus prabuvi. Both are the plant species, and UPSC can probably ask the plant species name, where are they found, and what are their characteristics as well. So if we are speaking about Fimbris sunli, this happens to be a perennial plant of the Cryptaceae family, and as per IUCN, it is assessed as data deficient. If we are speaking about Neonotus prabuvi, it was discovered in Chembara Peak grasslands of Wayanad. It hails from the family Rubiaceae. So kindly remember, this can be important from the preliminary examination point of view. Now let's look into the next practice question. With reference to Kaziranga National Park, which of the following statements are correct? It is designated as an important bird area by BirdLife International. It is the home of the world's most one-horned rhinos. UNESCO has declared Kaziranga National Park as a World Heritage Site. Which of the statements are correct? The answer to this is 1, 2 and 3. Why have we taken this practice question? Because this article on the Hindu makes a mention of Kaziranga. Let us understand some of the key factors when it comes to Kaziranga. It was established as Kaziranga Proposed Reserve Forest back in the year 1905. It was renamed as Kaziranga Wildlife Sanctuary in the year 1950. In 1974, we have the Government of India declared the area as a national park. In 1985, UNESCO declared it as a World Heritage Site, and it is also home to 2/3 of the world's population of rhinoceros. And in 2006, the Indian government declared it as a tiger reserve after the tiger population declined, and immediately after this declaration, we also have seen substantial increase of tigers in this particular area. So when we speak about Kaziranga National Park, remember, it is very important. You have to know the rivers flowing through it, and one of the national highways that also passes through the Kaziranga National national park happens to be National Highway 37. Since we have the national highway passing by on the periphery of it, what would happen? There will be animals which should be killed. In order to control them, in order to mitigate this impact, what we have is the state government speaking to the central government so that they can have elevated corridors and highways. So basically, this is one of the proposals where you would have an elevated corridor so that there is no man-animal conflict, there is no accident that takes place, and as a result, animals will not get disturbed by the movement of the vehicles. Now let's look into the next practice question. Basal norms, often seen in news, seeks to control transboundary movement of hazardous waste, strengthen the regulation, supervision and risk management for more resilient banks and banking systems, reduce short-lived climate pollutants, combat international tax avoidance by multinational companies. What does Basel norms relate to? The answer to this is strengthen the regulation, supervision and risk management for more resilient banks and banking system. Why have we taken this practice question? Because this article on the Hindu makes a mention of the Basel norms. If you look into the first option says controlling transboundary movement of hazardous waste. This is related to Basel Convention. So remember, Basel Convention is related to environment and Basel norms is related to economy. When we speak about the Basel Convention, this happens to be an international treaty. There are developed countries which move or transfer their hazardous waste from the developed to the developing countries. Who will be the major sufferers? It will be the developing countries. In order to prevent it, what we have is called as the Basel Convention. So the Basel Convention will primarily control transboundary movement of hazardous waste, and also remember, it does not address the movement of the radioactive waste. This particular point is very important from the preliminary examination point of view. Next, what we look at is the Basel norms. What is Basel norms? Basically, if you look into what is Basel, Basel is a city in Switzerland. It is headquarters of the Bureau of International System, where it brings in all the central banks together so that they can coordinate and cooperate so that there is financial stability world over and they all have a common standards of banking regulation. So what is Basel norms? Basel norms is nothing but norms where central banks come together so that they communicate amongst each other, regulate and standardize a banking system so that there is financial stability world over. So the purpose of this particular accord is to ensure that institutions have enough capital in their country. So the Reserve Bank of India is the primary controller of banks in India. So it laid norms in India, and all the banking channels and systems in India will have to ensure that they meet obligations to absorb unexpected loss. That is what is called as Basel norms. Now let's look into the next practice question. Consider the following pairs. We have the national park. We also have the river flowing through the park. Corbett National Park, Ganga. Kaziranga National Park, Manas. Silent Valley National Park, Kaveri. Remember, we did discuss about the Kaziranga National Park, which is why we have also taken this previous year question. Which of the above pairs are correctly matched? The answer to this is none of these. Why? That is because when we speak about Corbett National Park, the river that flows through is not Ganga, but instead it is Ram Ganga. Remember, it is also important that we know which are the rivers flowing through a particular national park. When it comes to Kaziranga National Park, it is not Manas, but instead it is Brahmaputra, Diflu, Mora Diflu and Mora Dansiri as well. So there are about 4 rivers passing through the Kaziranga National Park. Then we have Silent Valley National Park. Is Kaveri passing through it? No. One of the rivers passing through the Silent Valley National Park happens to be Kunti Pula. So remember, these are the important rivers flowing through the national park. So if you are reading about the national park, you should also know if there are any national highways passing by, if there are any tiger reserves close by, and if there are any rivers flowing through this particular national park. This happens to be a previous year question from the year 2013. Now let's look into the fact of the day. The fact of the day for today's discussion is INSACOG. What does it stand for? It stands for Indian SARS-CoV-2 Consortium on Genomics. this happens to be a forum which was established by the Government of India. It is under the control of the Ministry of Health and Family Welfare. It was established back in the year 2020. Why did the Government of India establish this consortium of labs or group of labs? There are different labs in India. These labs or the group of labs came under the bracket of INSACOG. Basically, all these labs that are present in India will study and monitor the genome sequencing, try and understand what are the various variations of the virus of the COVID-19, and they will study about the variants and its impact and its transmissibility, and ultimately give this information to the Government of India as well as the relevant state governments as well. So what is the objective of this particular INSACOG? Basically, all the samples of the COVID-19 patients collected from different states in India will be delivered to one of the designated labs in the country. So what will they do? They will try and understand what is the variant of COVID-19, whether is it Delta, whether is it Omicron, is it any other variant. So they'll try and understand the genome sequence of this particular virus, and they will try and understand what is the virus's infectivity, which means how is it going to transmit, which means what is the capacity of the transmission, how many people will be impacted. All these data will be collected, and this data will be given to the central government as well as the state government so that they can come up with a policy initiative. So the mutations will be understood by this particular consortium of laboratory, basically to understand what impact it will have on the human body. And at the same time, we have also seen various variants of COVID-19. People are also vaccinated as well. So will the vaccine be able to neutralize the variant, or these vaccines are not able to neutralize them? Have these variants become immune to the body? Are the existing antibodies able to fight the variant? Will be studied by this group of laboratories and ultimately will be given to the government. But these laboratories of late are also facing challenges as well. What are these challenges? Ideally, when it comes to the establishment, they should have actually sequenced about 5% of the COVID-19 samples. But as of now, they have only sequenced about 1%. Why? That is because of the challenges that are existing in the system. One, whenever we have to conduct an experiment, we have to ensure that the samples are collected. What we require is the capacity or the human resource, which is currently not present amongst these particular laboratories. What we require is the funding. This is once again not provided to these bodies, and at the same time, what we require is the reagents and the tools necessary to understand the genomic sequencing of all these variants. Because we do not have enough human resource, we do not have the reagents, we do not have the tools. These have become the major challenges when it comes to the execution of genomic sequencing. Added to this, the quality of equipment and the manpower is not able to meet the demand because there is surge in the cases, but we do not have enough resources when it comes to the execution, which is why the sequencing, which was initially mandated for 5% of the COVID-19 samples, is still stuck at 1%. This happens to be the major challenges when it comes to the actual implementation of the genome sequencing. This is it for today. Thank you for watching. All the best.